Hey everyone, today we have a very special guest. He is none other than Ben Malisow. He is the author of official study guide of CCSP from ISC Square, and Ben is contributing various areas of cybersecurity when it comes to teaching and training. Whether he contributes and teaches people in CISSP, CCSP, SSCP, CCSK. So he is having over 2 decades of experience in this discussion. Ben is sharing his experience, his journey in cybersecurity, what are the transition happens during the last decades or 2 decades in the areas of cybersecurity. And we are already also discussing about the aspect which needs to be taken care when it comes to the organization security. What are the things an aspirant who are starting a career in cybersecurity, or as an existing professional who wanted to transition into cybersecurity, what are the steps they need to take, and how a certification helps people in going scale up their career in cybersecurity. There are multiple certificates are available. How a certificate to be chosen by a cybersecurity professional, all these areas, and the mindset of a cybersecurity professional when you are looking for getting into leadership level, right? So that time, what are the things that you need to take care when it comes to becoming the leadership level as well. So there are a lot of discussion happened in various areas. I invite you to completely watch this video at its fullest and take a lot of notes, get it into the core, because this is coming from his core experience. So that is going to definitely help you and the cybersecurity professionals who wanted to scale up in their career, right? So thank you so much, and here we go with the discussion. Thank you so much for accepting the request and spending your valuable time for, and this is going to help a lot of people in the journey towards cybersecurity. So, and I want to thank you for all your contribution towards the field of cybersecurity. And I am so grateful and so proud and humbled that I am having a discussion with a person who I learned a lot, and I got a lot of support and mentoring in cybersecurity. Thank you so much for all that you are doing, Ben.
Very much my pleasure, and I'm honored that you requested me to speak. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ben. So, first of all, let us start with a little bit about you, about your journey in cybersecurity. So, it will be definitely going to help us.
Okay, you want me to introduce myself and tell you what I've been and where I've done, that kind of thing?
Yes, what is
Okay.
your journey in cybersecurity? More of that is.
Sure. Out of high school, I went into the military. I went to the Air Force Academy and trained to be an Air Force officer. And as an Air Force officer, I was heavily steeped in information security. It's where I got my first security manager position. It's where I was trained. I became an OPSEC officer, among other things. And I didn't really know much of the tech side of things. But when I separated from the military and I went to go get my master's, I started looking at some positions in the Washington, D.C. area for federal contracting in the security disciplines. And this was in the late 90s, early 2000s, right as we were on the cusp of creating this new industry that's called many things, whether it's InfoSec or cybersecurity or whatever you want to call it, computer security. So I kind of had to get up to speed on the IT side of things. That wasn't my mainstay. But once I did that, I spent some time in the DC area doing contracting work. My clients included DARPA, the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, TSA, and some private firms as well. And I really got a taste for it. And it's where I got my first certification. I got my CISSP over 20 years ago. That's how old I am. There's only 5 digits in my CISSP member number. So yeah, and I took a liking to it. And then when I left the DC area, I continued to work in both information and I worked I've always had an inkling and inclination towards training and teaching. And over the years, I've done different jobs involved in that, including teaching middle school, high school, college, and university, and then in private sector for adult learners. And I've loved it. I've loved it every inch of the way. And I've also had a penchant for writing as well. So I've been a journalist, I've been an author, and all these things kind of came together, the training, the writing, and the InfoSec. And about, I want to say 8 years ago or so, I started to go to work for ISC2 as one of their trainers. And soon after that, they asked me to help create content for them, including the actual training courses that ISC2 delivers for CISSP and some of the others. And recently, the CC certification, I got to help work on that first incarnation of that thing. They also asked me to write the official study guide for the CCSP and the official practice test book. And then after a few years of being their senior instructor, I decided to start my own business. And I just about a year ago created Wannabea, which teaches, right now, we teach CISM, CISSP, CCSP, CCSK, and I'm sure I'm missing one. SSCP. I don't know if I said that twice. Okay.
Yeah, SSCP. No,
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
first, yeah.
And created some books, courseware, recordings, and practice question sets, including, which I'm very proud of, the Wanna Practice app, which is an interactive test simulator with brand new questions you won't find anywhere else. And I'm really enjoying it. And so now I'm adding entrepreneur to the list of things I've done, and it's exciting, it's nerve-wracking, and it's rewarding as well.
Okay, thank you so much. And when it comes to the cybersecurity as a whole, what areas are making you much more interested and enthusiastic to put your effort and day in and day out?
That is a great question. And I'm going to say the areas I focus on are more about my weaknesses as opposed to the things that I like, but they kind of overlap too. I'm not technically expert. There are a lot better people who can get down in the bits and bytes and actually do the work a lot better than I ever could. And I accede that to them. So the stuff that appeals to me is obviously the training aspect of security, offering security awareness and creating courses for users to bring them up to speed. And I also love policy and governance, which I think comes from my writing background. I really like the managerial controls. I love GRC. I like compliance. I like knowing standards. I love learning about the impact of laws and regulations on security, and to ill or good, how those things actually manifest in our environment. So that's more my discipline. That's more my side of it. And I think that actually helps me be a better teacher, because that's usually the area where most of the technical people are weakest in. They don't know all the laws. They don't want to read all the policies and all the standards. They find that boring. They want to get and play with the technical stuff. So I can help teach them that aspect because they're pretty comfortable already with the OSI 7-layer model or networking or whatever else.
So I also felt that most of the time, mostly the cybersecurity is more of a process or legal oriented than a technology oriented. So the people, it is very critical to learn about the process. What is your view in that? Because
I'd say, you need both for sure. I mean, you can't just ignore the technical side, because if you do that, we're going to be overwhelmed by flaws, and you're going to not understand the issues that are at play. So that's definitely important. But I think you're right. Yes, security overall is a response to risk. And risk comes in many forms, including regulatory and compliance. And in order to do what we do, we have to comply with the law, we have to comply with regulation, and we have to comply with best industry practices, because if we don't, we're creating liability. We can have the best secured environment in the world, but if we fail an audit, or if we don't satisfy our insurer or underwriter, if we don't make our investors happy, if our users aren't comfortable, then the most secure environment in the world is irrelevant because we're not doing what we need to be doing. And that does include following the law and being in compliance with standards and general practices.
Okay, thank you. So, and what are the major challenges which are coming in the cyberspace and in coming in the recent times, and how we can plan for overcoming all those things?
Well, some of those challenges are really, really old and some are new. The really, really old ones are going to be the disproportionality problem. Being a defender is always harder than being an attacker. The defender has to be successful all the time. The attacker only has to be successful once. So we're always at a disadvantage there. But the new, for lack of a better term, threats and risks that are coming out, the challenges, as you put it, it's keeping current with the technology, which is going to be harder and harder with things like these nascent native speech AIs that are going to be a big boon to the attackers before we can harness them defensively, and similar types of technological progress. We're also seeing, like we were just talking about, the regulatory evolution is going to be one of our biggest challenges ever. We saw the massive effect of GDPR a few years ago, and it's still reverberating throughout our industry. We really haven't chased down all the ways that's going to affect us and all the costs that that's going to incur to stay compliant with. And more laws are coming. The lawmakers are constantly trying to do the right thing without understanding anything at all about the principles of security or technology whatsoever. It's a bunch of lawyers making rules for a bunch of technologists, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're creating unintended consequences, which we have to still comply with because it's the law. So those are going to be the big challenges that are new. One more old challenge is the biggest vulnerability in any environment is the wetware. We're going to be able to continue targeting users, or the attackers are going to be able to continue targeting users and being successful at it. When we saw most recently the second LastPass attack of recent months, where it was a sophisticated user, it was an engineer for LastPass who's, without knowing who that individual is, I'm going to presume that individual is highly trained, well experienced, very knowledgeable about IT. This is not someone's underage child who accidentally clicked on a wrong link. This is not trying to teach my father how to answer email properly. This is someone who knew enough to be secure. And that person was still a victim because they attacked that person through their home network where that person never could have reasonably conceived an attack would come through. So the wetware, the users, are always going to be our weakest link, and that's going to continue into the future, and that's going to be a challenge that we're going to have to constantly face as we're saddling users with more devices, with more IP addresses that they can wear, walk around with, track their movements, give up information. It's going to get harder and not easier.
Right. Yeah, because that is the weakest link in cybersecurity always, right? Thank you for putting it out. And when it comes to you have a very long, more than 2 decades of experience, okay, in cybersecurity, and 20 years back you completed CISSP. So what are the various transitions that you have seen all through these years in the areas of technology and cyber?
That's an awesome question. And I know I'm not going to give you a comprehensive answer because it's just off the top of my head. But some of the big evolutions that really stay with me are, first of all, laws acknowledging that there's an issue, that attacking a computer can actually cause some harm. Now, in the United States, we've had this Computer Security Act since, I think, 1987. And it was really lame. It was overly broad. It didn't really address what the actual threats and risks were. After certain malware attacks in the late 90s, early 2000s, now the regulators and the lawmakers started to catch up, started to understand that there were certain kinds of things that had to be addressed specifically in the law in order to prosecute malfeasance. So the law started evolving that way. And we're seeing it continue all the way up through today to where, as I just mentioned, I think now we have too many laws. It's almost aired on the side of overabundance. But that was an interesting evolution. The other evolution that I think is really important, and it wasn't any bright line moment that said, here's where this happened, or here's who changed their mind. But I remember starting in the late 90s, far before a lot of things that exist now were codified or even existed, where we had the fortress mentality. Nobody breaks in ever. We want zero penetration. We're going to be the castle in the sky and no one's ever going to touch us. Well, that's impractical. It's kind of naive and stupid when we look back and in hindsight. We thought we could accomplish it back then. And instead, in I think the early 2000s or the mid 2010s, we evolved into this concept of minimize impact, where we realize everyone's going to get popped eventually. Everybody can be breached. There, you can get in some way, whether that's physical or social engineering. There's a way to break in anywhere. And we've gone from the fortress mentality much, much more to where we should have been from the beginning: the defense in depth, the layered defense, the overlapping zones of control. We have the zero trust in the cloud, which is really neat. That's sort of a micro level version of defense in depth. And we've come to understand it's not, should we protect against all attacks and make sure there's zero penetration? Instead, it's, what do we do when we get penetrated? How do we respond? How quick is our response? How drastic is our response? How do we categorize and put criticality to our response? And I think that's a lot more pragmatic. That's a lot more reasonable. It's sensible. It's the way that we should realistically be looking at things. And I think that was a major sea change for a lot of people. Old people like me kind of didn't like it when it was happening, because we're like, no, you can't let them in the gate. Once you let them in the gate, you've lost. And the answer is no. The gate's only the first line of defense. We got 4 or 5 more. No problem, right? So I like that evolution. The other big evolution, and this just happened the past 5 to 7 years, security got a seat at the table with the big kids. Now, almost every organization of any appreciable size has a chief security officer or a chief information security officer, CISO, CISO, whatever you want to call them. They're if they're not on the board, they're on the executive staff. They're in senior management. This is vastly different from, again, when I started in the 90s. IT was one little office with a couple of guys who didn't shower regularly and nobody knew what they did. And as long as the network ran, that's all anybody cared about. Well, now the thing that makes them an organization, and therefore their data is something that should be protected at the utmost. And that includes, that kind of changed how we've been approaching things recently too. And it adds a lot more seriousness and a lot more power to the kind of practices that we want to implement.
Okay, so now the world is now moving more towards, okay, zero trust and the cloud-based. Yeah, absolutely. Great response on that. And what are in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Whenever people are trying to get into cybersecurity aspect, they are telling that next 2 decades, how cybersecurity is going to be. What are the technological challenges or changes that you are envisioning in the coming future in the cybersecurity space?
I've said many times, anyone trying to make a prediction, especially about our field, is setting themselves up to look stupid very quickly. But I'll try it. I'll give it a try. With the caveat saying, this could all go out the window tomorrow if somebody changes something and something happens. So, my predictions, take them for what you will. For people who are going into the field now, young people especially, or people cross-training into security, I'm going to give 2 things: recommendations and that kind of predictive thing that you're asking. Recommendations are, don't go to college and get a college degree, at least not right away. There are plenty of degrees now that did not exist when I was in college. There's security degrees, there's information security degrees, there are IT security degrees, there are very, very specialized things. But I don't think necessarily that those truly prepare you for doing the work. And in fact, 4 years of not working is going to put you 4 years behind your peers. Instead, I would say, go find work in the industry right away. And when I say in the industry, that means even anything tangentially related to IT. That could be dragging cable for the phone company. If it's networking somehow, if it's electronics somehow, get your foot in the door there, even if it's at a low-level position. All of that experience is going to count much greater when you keep looking for the next job and the next job and the next job. Now, I'm also biased. I teach certifications, so I believe in certifications. But I see certifications as being a great avenue for people to truly represent that they do have the skill and experience and capability that they say they have. So when employers ask for a cert, now if employers are smart and they really know what they're looking for, and they're not just picking a cert off a website because, hey, it's what everybody else hiring says that you should have. If employers are looking for a cert, then the user, the candidates, the employees can do themselves a service by going after those certs, which are cheaper, smaller scale, and more focused than a college education. They are particularly suited to the industry as opposed to the broad education. Now, I also do like education and I support that, but that is something you can do either part-time, especially with distance learning and remote universities. Do that over the course of your career, get your degree, but take your time doing it, lower your cost because that expense is huge, especially here in the US, and spread it out over time while you're working in the field and acquiring experience. That's a much better way to approach it. So that's the first set of recommendations. Now the predictions. I predict that the intersection between IT and that legal sphere that we were talking about, that's going to grow ever more important. It's going to be a lot more important than research and development into the next tech thing, building the new chip or figuring out a new protocol. All those things are going to happen organically anyway. The thing where the real need is in our arena are things like forensics, where there aren't enough people to meet the demand. You can pretty much name your price. If you can go get a good forensic certification and you can do the job, that's where you should be going. If I see a young person who's talking about getting into InfoSec, that's where I steer them. Similarly, people with law degrees who also understand IT and have the certs, that's going to be a huge place to be as well. Lawyers who know what tech is all about, what security is, those people are invaluable. We need many, many more of them. And that's, again, true for, just from what I know, writers and authors who are familiar with the topics and can investigate things and can digest and then simplify and amplify what they've seen and what they've discovered. That's huge as well. And I think we need more of that.
Yeah.
And then finally, I think we need more advocates. We need people who can explain technical topics to non-technical audiences, whether that's the board of directors at your company or whether it's an audience full of school children who don't understand the risks of putting their own personal information on the internet. We need a way of conveying those things to those audiences in a friendly, non-arrogant, and understandable manner. And so that's where, again, I would steer people in predicting what's going to happen over the next few years. That's where I'd push it. As the world becomes more technical, we need technical people who can speak in non-technical terms.
Great. So the forensics advocate the people. So when you are telling about the language, I have few years back, I have written one paper, an international paper is published in the language of information security. Thank you so much. So it's like whatever we are telling from the security angle, even in the top management, as well as our peers in other areas, even their technical guys are not able to understand what this guy is telling.
Yep. Yep. And that happens all the time. And our nomenclature is terrible. We've never had a good cohesive jargon or taxonomy that everybody understands. And my favorite example is the term Mac. If I say Mac in the context of IT security, it's got like 4 different meanings right off the bat. There's mandatory access control. There's the Macintosh computer. There's the MAC address of your NIC. You know, that's terrible. That's not good. All that leads to is miscommunication and confusion. And we've done that so many times at so many different terms, and our terminology is just never clear. And I don't know how to go about solving that. Yeah, I'm with you. I agree with you completely.
Yeah, great. You're, because you have seen cybersecurity a lot in this space, and people are joining into cybersecurity. Their struggles, they become experts. So what are your advice to job seekers who wanted to get into cybersecurity? I see there are 2 categories of people. One set of people who wanted to start their career in cybersecurity, and the second category of people, most of them who are approaching me are more than 10 years of experience, who are in lead or manager role in some other area. They wanted to come into cybersecurity. So what is your advice for these folks who wanted to join our tribe?
That's a great question. And I'm going to go ahead and shortcut the part where I say, go into forensics. If you have the discipline and the mental acuity for that, go there, because that's where the money is. So that we already talked about. But I would say for those who think they might be interested, start doing some research. Talk to people who are already in particular disciplines that you may want to learn about. And there's so many different areas to security. We've mentioned a half dozen of them already just in this, short conversation. Go and talk to somebody who does anti-malware. Go and talk to somebody who does change management. Go and talk to somebody who does networking. Go and talk to somebody who does policy and planning. Find out what their job is like on a day-to-day basis. Find out what their tasks are and what the specialized needs are for their skill set, and figure out if that's something that appeals to you. Because if it's something you're going to be doing for most of your career, you better like it, or at least not hate it. So figure out what that is. And by and large, nerds, people like us who do this stuff, we love talking about what we do. So if you approach somebody and you ask them questions, they're going to love to explain it to you. Reach out to them on LinkedIn. Hit them up on Reddit, or, send an email. Don't look like you're a creepy stalker, but explain, hey, I'm new to this field. I'm interested. Can you tell me a little bit about what you do? Now, here's my big advice for that. Don't just message somebody on LinkedIn and say, can you be my mentor? And then that's the end of the conversation. Once they say yes, be prepared for the yes. Once they say yes, have a list of questions that you want to ask them. Give them something to go on. Because most people, if you say, just tell me about what you do, we don't know how to start that conversation. We don't know how to describe what we do. We just do it. So have a list of questions that you ask. And it can be the same list of questions for the forensic person and for the auditor. Questions like, what do you do on a daily basis? What was your career path like? What do you like about your job? What don't you like about your job? What's the biggest challenge you face? All of these questions, have them ready so that you can lead the conversation to get the insights you want. Don't expect your mentor to be able to telepathically read your mind and figure out what they should be telling you. Give them something to go on. That's a big one. Another thing that I would suggest is, and again, I'm not just saying this because I worked on the project, but I like the idea of it. The CC certification from ISC2 is their brand new show pony. It's something that they really think is going to be that bridge between not being in IT security and then being in IT security. It's the thing that's intended for young people and for people transitioning from other career fields. You don't have to know security. You don't have to know anything about IT really to start out with. But at the end of the training and at the end of the certification, you've demonstrated that you have a capacity for learning and that you appreciate the topics that are going to be discussed. It's a great first step. It's not going to get you a job. It's not going to set your career, but it's going to demonstrate to other people that you're committed to at least knowing something about our field. And that is something we've been lacking in our industry for far too long. Employers have been posting job ads asking for junior starting analyst at minimum salary who has 10 years of experience in a CISSP. Those two things don't work together, right? Yeah. Either you're a senior person with 10 years of experience or you're a junior person with no CISSP. So this CC cert, I think, is a nice bridge. The other really nice thing about it right now, and again, I don't mean to advertise for ISC2. I don't work for them anymore. Right now, their training is free. Right now, taking the exam is free. Take advantage of free stuff. That's the best price you're ever going to get in this or any other industry. So yes, make use of that. And there's a lot of other free resources out there for this and other certifications. Learn, grow, develop, investigate. That would be my suggestion.
Yeah, great. Even I recommend, because since we done certification from ISC to learn the stuff, so I also suggest the people that CC is one of the bridge that, as you told, to start your career with. At least people can endorse that you know the language of security, at least some sort of. That's what wonderful suggestions. So one more challenge that I'm facing when people are approaching, even people are having decades of experience in IT. When I am approaching for cybersecurity opportunity, even World Economic Forum is telling there are 3 million job opportunities are available right now in cyberspace. But everybody is asking me, what is your experience? What is your expertise? Whether you can do that. So how to tackle these type of challenges? Because
and that's the thing I was just talking about is they say these jobs exist, but one, either the employers aren't willing to pay the premium for what that job should be paid, or two, they're asking for unrealistic job criteria, skills and experience that just do not meet the position requirements. That's hard. That's a huge challenge. My first answer to your question is always be honest. Don't ever try to inflate your skills. Don't pad your resume. Don't ever try to portray yourself as something you're not. There was a big discussion recently on one of the managerial forums that I frequent, where they were talking about people who were misrepresenting on their resume that they had certain certifications and they did not have those certifications. Yeah. And what that'll do is it not only won't get you the job, it'll make sure you never get a job either in that company anywhere or from that employer. If that hiring manager ever goes to another company, you're not going to get a job there either. They know that you've tried to lie to your employer or your prospective employer. So that's the first thing. Be honest. Second thing is be honest. Explain to hiring managers, look, I don't have a lot of experience. I don't have a lot of knowledge or skill in this discipline yet, but I'm willing to work at that lower pay in order to hone my skills and prove myself to you and gain the experience that I want in a field I want to enter. I do have experience doing this, this, and this, and show them what it is you've done. If it's a young person who doesn't have any real work experience, show them experience that you've done in school, show them experience that you did with club or outside activities where you had some responsibility, where you pulled through, you demonstrated that you're a mature, responsible young person that they can trust with what they're going to ask you to do. If you're an older person entering from another industry and coming into the InfoSec arena, show them what you've done in that other industry. Show them what you did in your previous positions. Excuse me. pardon me,
Yeah.
show them that you have some experience and that you have managerial capability, or that you have discipline, that you are a good employee. I know so many senior level IT people who would rather hire somebody who at least has showed up to work every day for the past year, who has taken on additional challenges, has accomplished something other than what their peers have done, who have taken on additional challenges to better themselves and to go to fruition. Most of the hiring managers I know would rather have that person and train them how to do InfoSec than grab some InfoSec person with 10 years of experience who has no interpersonal skills, who can't communicate properly, who's arrogant and conceited and feels that their way is the only way to do InfoSec and they're not going to listen to anybody else. That person is less appealing to a hiring manager. That person is less malleable and less cooperative. That makes them less valuable. So those would be my suggestions if you're going looking for a position.
Yeah. So that interpersonal skill is one of the major area that people are looking after, right? So in that case, when they are approaching the job opportunities, their resume also, whatever relevant experience they have, and they can project those things to the employer in a honest way. That's what your suggestion is, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter whether you were in charge of managing a horse stable. If you kept all your horses alive, you had happy employees, all your customers were satisfied, and you made money, I can make you an InfoSec professional. Those are the important things. It's not the fact that you worked with IT or didn't work with IT. That's not as important.
Right. Yeah. So how this because there are plenty before asking that one, so there are how the certifications, right? Certification is one of the things that we know so much value and all those things, but how that people have to approach to a certification, because that how it is going to scale their career from in various areas of cybersecurity space.
Yeah. And that's the hard one is where you're going to go, which one you're going to pick. There's so many out there. Part of when you did your investigation that I recommended earlier, when you go talk to an auditor, talk to a networker, talk to the different disciplines. One of the things you should be asking is, what certifications did you get? What certifications would you recommend for your discipline? And when you find the discipline you want to chase the certs that are going to be useful for that. So for instance, it may or may not be particularly helpful to go get the certified ethical hacker certification if what you want to do is be a plans and policy or GRC writer. Though, that cert doesn't necessarily match up with that position. But if you want to be an auditor, then you're definitely going to want to get ISO 27001 audit certification at some point. So you want to map your certifications through your career path. I would say if you're just starting out, the CC is the one to go for. If you already have IT experience, if you already have some knowledge of computers and so forth, start with the CompTIA stuff, the A+, Net+.
Okay.
Those are good low-level certification. And I don't mean low-level in that they're not challenging. They are challenging. I mean low-level in terms of they're not managerial, they're not broad view, they're very focused and specific on technology. Start there. That's a way to begin the ball rolling on your career. Then when you figure out what your path is, you can choose from a variety of different certifications in order to increase your value to your employer. Whether that's CISA or CISM from ISACA, whether it's the higher level CompTIA certs like CYSA Plus or SEC Plus, or whether it's the ISC2 stuff like CCSP or CISSP. Whatever route you choose, make sure, as long as you're picking from one of the major cert bodies, whatever cert you pick isn't going to be bad for you. It's not going to close any doors. It's just you have a finite amount of time, money, effort, and energy. Pick the ones that are going to be most valuable for you, because you don't want to study everything all the time forever. Pick the good ones. Yeah.
Thank you. So, because there are more than 75 plus certifications are out there, that's what people are getting. Okay, I wanted to do this, I wanted to do that. But once they later realize that whatever certificate they done is not at all relevant to the area they are working. Yeah, great suggestion. So definitely it will help the people, right? And when people are wanting to do certification and people are, when they hear about certificate, especially CISSP or CCSP, they are afraid. Okay, they go and do some other certification. Okay, I am afraid of doing this. I may pass. So what is your recommendation or suggestion for those who wanted to do this certification and clear those things in with more confidence?
First of all, know this: CISSP is a beast. That is a bear of an exam. It is hard. CCSP is hard. SSCP is hard. There's no easy way to go about it. There's no magic bullet. And there's actually no path to studying that's right for everyone, because every learner is somewhat different. For instance, if you just gave me a book and said, read this and go take the test, I would fail the test. I have to sit and listen to somebody talk. I got to sit in a class. That's the way I learn. But other people might learn by watching videos. Other people might be more served by listening to an audio of a recording, or, or someone else could read the book and pass the exam. It's completely dependent on each different learner. You got to figure out what works for you in order to reduce that anxiety. If the way that you study is reading a book and taking notes, so what you've read sticks in your brain, then do that and read multiple books. Don't read one book and think you're going to pass a cert exam. Don't read multiple books from one author. Read multiple books from multiple different authors. Get multiple voices in there. If instead, though, taking a class is important, go take a class. Take several classes. Again, use different instructors. Take your time. There's no rush. Unless your boss says, you need to have the cert right now to stay employed, or unless your boss says, we'll pay for the cert if you take it this year, there's no hurry to get your cert. Take your time, study, make yourself feel comfortable to the point where you're ready to take it. The other big piece of advice that I would give is most certifications that are at a senior level, or at least a non-starting level, have an experience requirement before you can earn the certification. Just passing the test isn't sufficient. You have to pass the test and you have to have this number of years in this industry. Make sure you have that number of years. That's a minimum requirement. Okay. If they say you need 5 years, have 5, have 10 years. Don't try it when you're at 4 years. That's a bad idea. You're gonna create a difficulty for yourself. I know too many people who want to go in a hurry and get that certification as soon as possible. That's not going to help you. That's not what the certification does. It's not a magic stepping stone to solving all your problems. Other ways to reduce your anxiety. Talk to a lot of people who have already taken the exam. Get their read on it. Find out whether this is something you want to try or whether it's something you think you can do. For every cert exam there's a specific subreddit dedicated to people discussing just that thing. Go there and talk to them and find out what that's all about. There are local chapters of many of the certifying bodies. I'm not exactly sure what it's like in India, but over here in the US.
Yeah, we have also. ISC2 chapter is there even in Bangalore. Yeah.
There you go. Do you have an ISACA chapter as well? Or?
Yeah. Very old ISACA chapter in Bangalore.
Yeah. You can find people. Go to those meetings. Some of them are open to the public. Some are members only, but some are open to the public. Go and meet those people. Talk to their chapter officers. Tell them that you're interested in entering this field and that you want to get these certs. Ask them for advice. you're going to be inundated with suggestions and assistance. You're going to get sick of all the people giving you help, because if there's nothing else that certified people like to do, it's to tell other people how to get a certification.
Yeah.
And a lot of us want to give away our old books too. So they'll give you their old books for free. And that's a huge boon as well. And then I think another way to reduce your anxiety, every certification exam that's of good quality. Again, ISACA, CompTIA, ISC2, they publish an exam outline for the certification test. It is their list of everything that it could appear on the exam. It's free. It's on their website. Get a copy of it, read it, go down the list and see which topics do you know, which topics have you never heard of, which topics have you heard of, but you don't really know all that much about them and you need to learn a little bit more. Do that. I am shocked how many people, including some of my students before they got to my class, how many people never read the exam outline for the test they're going to go take. It's the testing body telling you, here's what's on the test. Go read that thing. That thing is invaluable. Definitely do that.
Yeah, wonderful. Because I think it was told to me by you only initially. So with going and reading that exam outline, because many of the courses I did, they were not, whether they are aware or they are missing it, I don't know. But this is one of the bigger advice. Thank you so much. Yeah.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. One more, this when people are moving towards the leadership levels of cybersecurity, like lead roles, manager roles, then looking forward for the ladder of chief security officer or chief information security officer, how their approach should be and what are the things that they need to take care in that level to reach to that leadership level and contribute to the cyberspace.
That's a harder question for me to answer because I have not been in those roles. I've never been a CISO. I've never been a CIO. So take this with a grain of salt in terms of my recommendations. I do have a lot of friends and colleagues who obviously are in those roles, so I can speak to it a little bit from what I've heard from them secondhand. First thing is, it's not about the tech. Tech doesn't matter. It's about the people. When you're in the management role, you're managing people. Yes, you have a bunch of IT assets. Yes, you have a bunch of data assets, but you're in charge of the people. And it's how you run the people that determine how well that tech is going to work for you. That's paramount. If you're not comfortable managing people, do not try to go into a CISO role. It's just not going to be right for you. Stay as a practitioner. There's a lot of very good senior practitioners who've been there for 30 years because they're comfortable with the computer. They're not comfortable with the people. And that's great. We need those people. The other thing is those communication skills, that's everything to be senior management. You have to communicate with so many different bodies, from the board of directors to the investors, to the public, to regulators, to your employees, that it's absolutely crucial that your interpersonal skills are paramount, that they are honed to a fine degree. Again, you can know everything in the world about the bits and the bytes, and that doesn't matter if you can't explain it to the board. So that is huge. There's no cert for that. And there's very few ways to train to be a better communicator, to be more charming with interpersonal skill. That's just not a thing that we often do. So that's hard to do. But it's all politics, and it's a different animal than being good at running the systems.
Okay, yeah. So that is the more interpersonal, the language is still coming in there. So how to present that to the management, and that is where absolutely, that is the challenge. We also, the risk that we wanted to tell, the way we understand, if we tell, they are not at all care, because there is a fine line between the convenience and security. So people wants convenience.
That's the balance. Oh yeah. I mean, it's not a fine line. It's a bright line distinction. The more secure you are, the less productive you will be, and that's just the way it's always going to have to be. That's the trade-off. you can be really, really secure, but you're not going to get anything done. So that's hard. That's hard to do. Yes. Yeah.
And the thing is, like, there are a lot of technological changes happening, a lot of security threats are coming, and one of the major threats still continues is the weakest link, that the users. So how we need to be in alignment with all the changes, and as a security guy, we need to understand multiple things, then only we can even think of protecting an organization. So how we can be in that learner mode and be updated with all these things? What is your advice for that part?
You're asking me how to run a security program?
No, I'm not asking you how to run a security program. As a security professional, how we can be updated with all the changes happening
Oof,
and
oof.
understand the threat landscape and make sure that we are protected.
So hard to do. It's so hard to do. That's a tough question. All right. So what I would say, and again, I've never been a CIO or a CISO or anything like that. Stay connected. And I don't think I have to tell this to us, to nerds. Nerds do this anyway. We're constantly reading. We always want to learn more about what's going on. So we need to tap into those things. We want to look at all that open source reporting. Now, the nice part is, and this is one of the evolutions that I forgot to add back when you were talking about what have I seen as changes over a couple of decades. The news has started to cover security as a topic. That was never a thing that was talked about 20, 30 years ago. It's interesting when somebody gets infected with malware. It's fascinating when ransomware shuts down a business. You know, people like that, both for the prurient interest of, ooh, the criminals got away with something, but they also like to hear about it because it's an intriguing, dramatic story, right? So because the news is covering this, it's a lot easier for us to stay abreast of what's going on. And there's so many specialized news outlets out there that are just in our sweet spot. Everyone from Brian Krebs to Bruce Schneier has a blog where they publish exhaustively. This is all they do is write about security developments, and they congest it and they deliver it in a way that's convenient and easy to access and to read. So stay abreast with all those. Listen to podcasts. I do a weekly podcast called The Sensuous Sounds of InfoSec, where we talk about all kinds of security topics and some things that aren't security. It's fun to actually stay current with all of the material going on. With that in mind, I'm going to add a caveat. No matter how much we stay aligned with what's going on in our industry, something new is going to happen that's going to surprise all of us, and we're going to go, where'd that come from? You know? Yeah.
WannaCry was one of the biggest hit. Nobody expected that one. So it's like that. Many are coming. Log4j, all those things. And okay, we were talking about more on cybersecurity technology, how it is going to change and all. What are the mindset that your advice, that how a cybersecurity guy has to take his mindset comparing to other
person, one of us?
Yeah, all of us are in that space, right? So how
paranoid, twitchy, and just generally disagreeable. We don't like rules because we think rules are too constraining. We want to fix the problem. We don't want to follow the rule. On the other hand, we don't like rule breakers. If someone violates the policy, that upsets us and offends us. We help write the policy. We're enforcing the policy. We're weird creatures. We're dichotomous this way. We are paranoid by habit, nature, and trade. We don't trust anything. We don't trust something that was just written down that says, do this. We have to go and try it for ourselves. We're like the dumb kid where you tell the kid, don't stick your finger in the electrical socket. First thing a nerd's going to do is go over there and stick their finger in the electric just to find out, should I not stick my finger in the electrical socket? We love playing with stuff. We love taking it apart until it breaks. We love trying to put it back together again. We have a very weird way of looking at the world. And this is going to get me in trouble if I say this the wrong way. If you're a security person then you're at the airport and you're looking around trying to figure out how to sneak into places you shouldn't be. Even though you're just going on a plane on vacation, you just look around and you go, how could I break into here? How could I steal stuff? What could I do? Where are the blind spots of these cameras? How many guards they got? What door did that person go into? That person just looks like someone who does maintenance around here. Could I get into that door? That's the kind of mentality that security people have. We are criminals, but we don't break the law. We just want to see where the laws are, and we want to figure out what they mean, what they do, and are they any good?
That's a great piece of advice.
Thank you.
That's a great piece of advice. That's the mindset a security guy should have. Absolutely great. Absolutely great. Yeah. What is your suggestion or recommendation? Because many people, when we are telling about a coach, a mentor, I was wearing a t-shirt and which that I can coach. Okay, then people, the technology, cybersecurity guys, which sports are you going to coach? So that is one of the bigger challenges facing. If we're coaching that sports, then we have to slowly come. So what are the importance of a coach and a mentor in our career? And when it comes to especially the cybersecurity, one of the serious domains in the back end of a business. So what are their roles and how they can help a cybersecurity professional who are planning to start their career, transition their career, or who are already there, they wanted to scale up their career? What is your advice on that?
I wouldn't have a career in this industry if it hadn't have been for some of my early managers who were my coaches and mentors. The manager that I had, possibly the best manager I've ever had, who told me to go get the CISSP before I knew what a CISSP was, is the reason I went and got that certification in the first place. A good mentor, a good coach can change and influence one person's trajectory in a significant way that will ultimately affect many, many more people, if not the entire industry itself. I don't pretend that I have entire impact over the whole industry of information security. I do, however, know that many people buy my books and use them to study for tests. If that manager had never steered me to CISSP, I would never work for ISC2. I would never write those books. I would never be able to influence those people. So that one coach kind of added to the collection of everything that's included in our industry. And that's invaluable. That is huge. That's insurmountable. Now, I think your question was also kind of how to do it as well.
Yeah, so that is also one thing, because there are multiple coaches and mentors are coming in, and people are some of the people are coming to us. You also definitely feel that they got some mentoring, but they were ultimately end up with where they want. They do not have any clarity where they want to go. So that is also one area that yes, absolutely required.
That's an extremely hard thing to do, to convey important information in an informal setting. Because most people, if they're not in a school, if they're not in a class, if they're not doing something that's rigid and structured, they're less prone to take advice or see the value in it. But that's sometimes some of the most important advice that can be given. Again, the manager who told me to do that wasn't ordering me as a manager to go and get the CISSP. They were recommending to me a pathway that they thought might be valuable to my long-term career prospects. So how do you coach those people entering into the field? Be honest with them. Be human. Tell them your own journey, your own path into this. Tell them the things that you're nervous about. Tell them the things that scared you. Tell them your lack of success, your failures that you've had. Convey to them that it's not something that is insurmountable, that it's not something that nobody can accomplish. I failed the Security Plus exam the first time I took it. Security Plus was the first test that asked me specific port numbers for certain protocols. I didn't know that stuff. I'm not a networking guy. I told you that at the beginning of this interview. So yeah, I had to study real hard to pass it the second time. It's good for people to hear that, because it shows that if they slip up or if they find it difficult or challenging, that doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that we've all shared in those same experiences. We've all had those same problems. And if an idiot like me can do it, anybody else can do it too. We had an episode on the podcast a few weeks ago about imposter syndrome.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, we're three of us who have more than 25 years of experience in the industry. We all admit we don't know what we're talking about half the time. We feel like we're complete frauds. And that's true for everyone and anyone, whether it's somebody, well, the problem with 17 or 19-year-olds, they believe they know everything and they know nothing. While 39-year-olds know a lot, but fear they know nothing, right? Because they know more. Yeah. So that's a challenging thing to do. If we can demonstrate to those junior associates of ours that we can share this pathway to success, then they'll be more prone to listen.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So the importance of mentor and how a mentor should be, yeah, that is a great piece of advice. So that is what required. But there are other challenges that I am seeing people wanted to come into cybersecurity. They are always going for a lot of free stuffs. And there are a lot of free stuffs are available, which are not strategically or systematically aligned.
For
And
most
yeah,
products, and this isn't true just for training material, that most things that are free are worth exactly as much as you paid for them. Now, there are sometimes exceptions to this rule. For instance, Prashant Mohan's books, Cirrus and Memory Palace for CCSP and CISSP respectively, are excellent. And Prashant is crazy enough, and I've told him this, that he makes those available for free. And I still recommend them to everyone. They are great resources, and they're better books than some stuff out there that publishers charge $80 for. So definitely take advantage of some of the free stuff. Now, however, if all you're looking for is free, then you're handicapping yourself. You are automatically harming your own efforts. If something has value, there should be some expense associated with it, whether that expense is a measure of time or money or however else you want to measure it. If it's worthwhile, then it's going to cost you something. So I would say use the reliable resources that are free, and there are some out there, but also don't discount something as being unattainable just because it's expensive. If you have to save up to afford it, that might still be worth the investment.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for that one. I think these are the major things that I wanted to discuss with you. And any other piece of advice that you want to give to the people who are stepping into cybersecurity or wanted to scale in cybersecurity, other than what we discussed right now?
Please come join us. We need more people in our field. Don't get discouraged. It's hard to do, but it's incredibly rewarding. And we love to have more people. We like more nerds. Please come join us.
Yeah. Great piece of advice. Yeah. Thank you so much, Ben. So for the time you spent with us. So it was really great, insightful. And it's not that I can search this. I may take a decade of time to search and get this much information if I wanted to do myself. But it's from the experience. Definitely, it is so much valuable. And those who are hearing this, please make sure that cybersecurity is one of the best field, and go through this. If you can able to understand, if you cannot understand one time, go through again, because Ben has talked from his decades of experience, and he's one of the best leader in the cybersecurity space. And definitely this information is so valuable for you, and use it for the best benefit and contribution to the field of cybersecurity. Thank you.
Well,
And
again, thank you for having me. I'd love people to come visit the Wannabea website, CISSP.com. Check out our blog, listen to the podcast, email me if you have any questions. I'm on LinkedIn, connect with me. I'm on Reddit. Ask. Glad to help out. And obviously, I love talking. So I appreciate your invite again. Thank you.
I'll be sharing the link also, so that if they wanted to learn and come to your website and the podcast, definitely they can go and visit. I share those links as well to them.
Outstanding. Thank you. Thank you, Mahesh.
Thank you so much.